Welcome to Travis Laughs, but first, a message from the guy who talks really fast. Travis Laughs would like to acknowledge the inspiration of the Is We Dumb podcast for the one-star reviews. This episode of Travis Laughs heavily features references to iconic American movies and actual online user reviews that have not been altered in any way, although they may have been reinterpreted in the use of artistic emphasis while read. The reviewers' names have not been changed, and so their exemplary works of criticism have not been plagiarized in any way.
Travis Laughs is about doing comedy, not about life lessons, and yet here we go. They tell you to live your best life, but they don't warn you that that involves ignoring a lot of advice about what your best life is. Maybe your best life is going to be laying in the hammock, relaxing intensive, in which case you just got to discard people that tell you should be doing more. If you meet a guy you haven't seen for a year, and he says, "Hey, what have you been up to?" And you say, "Oh, nothing, really, nothing." And then you ask politely, "Well, what have you been up to?" And he says, "Well, I put $500,000 in the bank this year." Then you should ask him, "Oh, that's wonderful. I'm happy to hear that. What was your goal?" "Well, I was trying to put $1 million in this year, but I got halfway there." "Why? What were your goals?" "Me? My goal was to do absolutely nothing." "Fucking nailed it. Don't leave me hanging, you poor loser." If you're trying to live your best life and you're going to crawl through the river of shit, which is public opinion, in the hopes of coming out on the other side clean, like my friend Andy Dufresne, then you need to be ready to disregard what certain people say to you. If you bump into a guy named Vishwak Reddy and he says, "I've been observing that you're pretty unimpressive. You're pretty dull." You have to let that go without absorbing it at all. And it might help to remember that Vishwak went onto the internet after watching The Shawshank Redemption, which, by the way, was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. And this is what he told the entire world he thought of that movie. LMAO. This film is trash and boring. I was bored to death while watching this. I can't believe that this is the highest rated IMDb Hollywood movie. Yeah, maybe disregard anything that guy has to say. If you let people's words hurt you, it can turn into a wound that you carry around with you. Maybe in your effort to live your best life, you start feeling like your job as a breadwinner or a partner or a parent has left you a little bit two-dimensional, and you want to be a whole person so that you can take care of your family, because nothing is more important than the family. So you take up a hobby. Maybe you do carpentry and you build a birdhouse, your first birdhouse, and you take it out in the yard and you hang it on the branch in the tree in your yard, and your neighbor, Bill West, sticks his head out the window and goes, "That's a birdhouse? That's garbage. That thing's an insult to carpentry. That's a threat to any bird that tries to use it." Ouch. But take those comments with a grain of salt. And remember that Bill West went onto the internet to tell the world what he thought of Marlon Brando's acting in the first Godfather movie. Brando nearly sinks part 1 with his "hey, look at me" performance. He was never an ensemble actor. We can't let people steal our joy with comments like that. If we don't want to see darkness take over the world, we have to be the source of light. We have to be like that guy in the movie Life is Beautiful. Hopeless situation. He's in a concentration camp in World War II, but he brings warmth and laughter and imagination where you wouldn't think it could exist for the people around him. That's how you beat the bad guy. You don't let yourselves get dispirited when somebody like Samuel Pike criticizes your A game. You just gotta bear in mind that Samuel Pike went online after he saw that movie and wrote the following review. Badly written and developed. Even for the time it was released. It was awful. Dickhead. Am I doing that right? I feel like we need to accept and talk about the fact that there will always be clueless, mean-spirited, or stupid people operating around us. And we need to prepare our children to handle the externalized self-loathing some of those people project out into the world. And I know you're thinking, yeah, but we're getting better. And we really are. We are. We're improving as a species. We are evolving. And yet, a decade after the first human being walked around on the moon, got out of a space capsule and walked around on the moon, thousands of people were terrified that rock and roll music was putting demons right into their children. And I'm not talking about in some isolated village on the edge of a desert somewhere. I'm talking about right here in the United States of America. I'm talking about American high school students begrudgingly burning vinyl albums in their front yard just to keep mom and dad from having a heart attack during the satanic panic. Decades after the invention of the first electrical calculator, there were many people who were screaming about the infringement of their civil liberties because there was a mandate that you needed to wear a seatbelt while you were operating an automobile on the highway. A full century after the invention of the electrical refrigerator, 128,000 Americans are hospitalized every year from food poisoning, often as a result of eating sensitive food that had been left on the counter for too long. We're always going to be dealing with a few. In the cast of nearly 8 billion human beings, the role that you play in the current production of Life on Earth can only be played accurately by you. No one else can do it. So yeah, sure, maybe one day you were in the men's room at the urinal and you looked down and realized you were peeing on your earbuds. Maybe one night, fully exhausted, you tried to crawl into bed, you got under the blankets but on top of the top sheet, and instead of just accepting it and having a good night's sleep or getting up and fixing the problem, you spent the entire night half awake trying to solve this riddle. Maybe there was the time when you got incredibly drunk and had the most difficult time getting onto the toilet, and the next morning your roommate screams, "What the hell happened in the washing machine?" Sure, that happened. It's happened to everybody. You are an essential component of this big experience that we're all sharing. It's kind of like Frank Capra was trying to say in his story, It's a Wonderful Life. His character, George Bailey, despite all the disappointments and disillusionments he had in his life, he came to realize through the course of the story how incredibly important he was to everyone around him, and that together they could have a wonderful life. So, don't let yourself be slowed down or put out or misdirected by people that criticize you. You know, if you have an Elias Karanikis come along and say, "Hey, you know, you suck," just remember, Elias went onto the internet after watching It's a Wonderful Life, you know, the beloved holiday movie that everybody has seen, and he shared this opinion. This movie should be called It's a Horrible Life, because there were way too much things going on at once. And George never got a wonderful life except at the end. This is by far the worst movie ever made. Live your best life. And I know you're probably thinking, Travis, I'm talking about right here in the United States of American